Okay, friends, so we'll go ahead and start with reciting the Namo Tassa and the three refuges for those who like. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Buddhang saranang gacchami, Dhammang saranang gacchami, Sanghang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Sanghang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi Sanghang saranang gacchami. So friends, welcome to this Wednesday evening's Sutta class. And as I briefly mentioned then, and when I sent out in the last mailing, tonight I'm going to start, reviewing some of the suttas that we have been going over in the last now more than a year and a half. And some of the ones that we started with at that time, it's been over a year and a half or so since we went over some of these suttas. And because some of them have a lot of very deep, information and meaning in them and insights into them, it's good to keep reviewing them, from time to time. Because every time we read a sutta or even hearing a Dhamma talk, we can glean new insights from it because our own minds have changed and through our practice of meditation, hopefully our mindfulness and concentration has deepened so that when we hear the same information again, then we can get new insights or kind of a new twist or understanding of that. So that's why, especially some of these very important suttas, it's useful to do that. And I'm going to contrast also this sutta with the one we read over last week, when hopefully it's still fresh in your mind also. So anyway, this sutta is number 1 from the Majjhima Nikaya, the Mulapariyaya Sutta. And it's the translated as the root of all things. Mula meaning the root. Like the Muladhara chakra is the root chakra. We were just discussing chakras a moment ago with some few people. So the root of all things. And so the Buddha, whoever put together the Majjhima Nikaya, they put this sutta at the very beginning. Although it doesn't, but it's not a sort of an elementary sutta. But right at the beginning, the Buddha wanted to make it clear what is the real essence of his teachings. And that everything else that follows, learning how to control your mind and overcoming the hindrances and developing meditation, these are all the practice of the Dhamma designed at eventually being able to gain these deeper types of liberating insights. So anyway, for those who may not have had time to read the sutta again, I'm going to just go over parts of it and then point out the important parts. So anyway, he tells the Buddha was teaching the monks, and he said, "Bhikkhus, I shall teach you a discourse on the root of all things. Listen closely to what I shall say." And then he goes on to say, "Monks, an untaught ordinary person, one who has no regard for the noble ones and is unskilled and undisciplined in the Dhamma of the noble ones, and they don't have any regard for spiritual persons, and they're unskilled and undisciplined in the Dhamma of the spiritual persons, people practicing various types of spiritual paths. Anyway, these unskilled persons, these untaught ordinary folk, I like that term actually, it's very appropriate, untaught ordinary folk. They perceive earth as earth. Having perceived earth as earth, they conceive themselves as earth, or they conceive themselves as being in earth. They conceive themselves being separate from earth. They conceive earth to be mine, and they delight in earth. Why is that? Because they have not fully understood it, I say, or the Buddha is saying. So, first of all, what does it mean here by the earth? Because this phrase is repeated through all of the different list of elements and other things. So I'm just going to go over this one, and it can be the same logic and reasoning can be applied to all of them. So the earth refers to the earth element. So I think you all know that the all material matter is comprised of the four elements: the element of earth, water, fire, and air. But as I've mentioned in other discourses and explanations, Dhamma talks, I prefer to use the term vibration, because the earth element is not some element in the physics charts or the chemistry charts, like oxygen and other types of things like that. But it's the quality of solidity that arises within our consciousness through the impingement of the senses. Anyway, so whenever we experience anything through the senses, especially if it's something through our anything that you see, hear, smell, taste, and feel with the body, all those things coming through there are what we call earth vibrations. The sound is an earth vibration. That means it has the element of something being real or solid. And sound is said to be comprised of also the four elements. So anyway, so any of the five senses, whenever you have a sense experience, you're perceiving the earth element. That means you recognize, you this vibration, or the visible vibration, sound vibration, odor vibration, taste vibration, or a tactical vibration. So that's your initial experience. And then it says, he conceives himself as earth. So he's like with the body, he feels the body and he perceives that these earth element vibrations, this is my body, or this is my hand, this is my foot, this is my hair, or eyes. He's conceiving these sensory vibrations as belonging to him. Or that he conceives himself in them, or conceives himself apart from them. This means basically it's just sort of covering all the bases in any conceivable way that they relate to these sensory stimulations. He's always relating it back to these things are happening to me. And I'm experiencing these things. These are happening in me or outside of me. So he's conceiving it. And then he delights in them. That means, especially the ones that bring him a pleasurable feeling, he delights in them. Now, if it's a painful feeling, he would have aversion to them. And then the Buddha says, why is that? Because he has not fully understood it, I say. So not understanding the nature of the mind and the nature of perception, I mean, the mental process, they take everything that they experience through the senses and see it in a subject-object relationship. And we've talked about this many times in the past, so I hope most of you are familiar with this. So, they say, I am seeing that person. And then that relationship to that person or to that visible object or that smell or that taste or that sound, they're relating it back to them and their memory of that, and then triggering off the desire, delighting in wanting to hear, see, smell, and taste those things, or the aversion to those things. And so that is how the mind has, conceived himself in relationship to all those sensory experiences. And he takes them for self, and he takes them for being permanent, self-existing objects. Because he hasn't understood it. Because again, he's talking about the untaught, ordinary person. That means they know nothing about the mind, what is the mind, how the mind operates. All they know is that, from babyhood up until, all the way through college and adult life, they're just, they're just a doer behind all these things, and they haven't bothered questioning it or anything else. So they haven't been taught about the mind, even in science classes. Very little bit of teaching, even in psychology classes, really don't get to explaining and understanding the mind as deep as the Buddha did, or even anywhere near as deep as the Buddha did. So then that's why these people, because they haven't been taught about it, and they've just grown up since they were a baby, learning all these things and having the joint society, and they've formed all their loves and hates, likes and dislikes, fears, worries, anxieties about not getting these things what they want, and getting the fear of getting the things that they don't want, the painful feelings. And they're all tied up in that. And all the karma that we create is oriented around that. And that is really the import, or the meaning, the implied meaning behind how the Buddha is explaining that. So anyway, he goes on to repeat the same thing for the water element, the fire element, the air element, and then also beings. He has a whole list of things. Having perceived beings and beings, he conceives himself in them, apart from them. Again, basically, as I've already just explained. And then he even goes on to he perceives the formless jhanas also. And he conceives himself in that, I'm attaining the jhana of infinite space, infinite consciousness, nothingness, and so on. Because again, he hasn't fully understood it. Okay, so that's with the untaught ordinary person, that he perceives the earth as earth, and then he conceives in earth, delights in earth, and the earth is mine, and he has all these, forming all these attachments. And why is it? Because he hasn't not understood it. Okay, now we're going to the second category. After explaining all these things, how the ordinary untaught person, they perceive things as being these objects, and they get attached to them, and they get all bound up in the karma connected with greed and hatred and delusion, and they experience the suffering connected with the impermanence and not being able to control any of these things. So now he's talking about the bhikkhu who is in a higher training, whose mind has not yet reached the goal, but they're aspiring, to the supreme security from bondage. Now, the bhikkhu, the Buddha referring now to the bhikkhu and person who is in a higher training, that means somebody who's attained the state of a sotapanna, that they've entered the stream, and they've had a brief glimpse of the Dhamma, have gone beyond doubts, but their mind is still conditioned. They're still caught up in greed, hatred, and delusion to a great extent. But now they've seen the truth, and they're going to be practicing in a much more skilled way. So talking about these stream enter, or a once returner, or a never returner, instead of perceiving earth as earth, he says, having directly known earth as earth. Now, this is important. So the average untaught person conceives the earth as earth, but the learners have directly known earth as earth. That means they know that these vibrations are empty of any absolute independent existence, including the sense of I, but also all the objects that the mind is creating. So he directly knows that they're an illusion, but because of the force of old habits, he will still kind of conceive them as earth. But the Buddha is saying here, directly known earth as earth and all the rest of the categories, he's saying he should not conceive himself as earth, or conceive himself in earth, apart from earth, or delight in earth. And why is that? Because he still has ways to go. He must fully understand it, I say. So even the Sotapanna hasn't fully understood it. He's only understood it to a certain extent. by having that direct glimpse of Nibbana, but yet the mind is still caught in up in the webs of conditioning and so on. So these are the differences between the ordinary person and the person who's at least entered the path. That having directly known earth as earth, I mean, he knows better, but yet he does it anyway. So the Buddha is saying he shouldn't, he knows better, but because of the force and strength of past habits, he can't help it because he hasn't fully trained himself yet. He's still a trainer. He's still in training. So the Buddha is saying he should not conceive. He should try and not conceive himself in the earth or delight in it. And because he must fully understand it, I say. That's why he should not do it. He still has a long ways to go in fully understanding it. So, and then he goes on, the third category is an Arhant, who's destroyed all the fetters and has attained full enlightenment. So he says, a monk who is an Arhant with taints destroyed and reached the goal, liberated through final knowledge, he too directly knows earth as earth. So the Buddha directly knows earth as earth, just as the Sotapannas and other trainees directly knows earth as earth. Having directly known earth as earth, he does not conceive himself as earth. Now, this is the difference between the learners and the Arhant, is that the learners should not try and conceive themselves as earth, but the Arhant does not conceive themselves as earth. And why is that? Because they've totally overcome the sense of an I that's conceiving these things, conceiving himself in, apart, the same, different, or delighting in those elements or sense perceptions. So, this is a gradual development. So the trainer, tries not to do it, but he makes mistakes and he does it quite often. But the Arhant does not conceive himself in earth because his mind's been totally free and he has that fully developed wisdom. And why is that? Because the Arhant has fully understood it. But now, then the Buddha keeps going further and repeating these things with slightly different meanings. And so the next one is called Arhant Ii. And he's talking about, again, the Arhant with final knowledge. They do not conceive themselves in earth. They do not delight in it. But because he's freed from lust, he does not delight in earth because he's free from lust through the destruction of lust. Now, the Arhant is also free from lust and the destruction of lust, but he's kind of repeating it. So it's kind of, I think it's just repeating it for emphasis. That the first one was, the Arhant has fully understood it and is totally liberated, but he's saying this one, he's free from lust through the destruction of lust. Now the other Arhant is also free from lust, and he repeats the same thing for hatred and delusion. So basically, there's Arhant II, Arhant III, and Arhant IV. Basically, which just add, each one is free from lust, hatred, and delusion. But even Arhant I is also free from lust, hatred, and delusion. And so really there's not any significant difference in those. I think it's just repeated several times to kind of, drive the point home. And then he talks about the Tathagata. After going all through those four stages of the Arhant, he says, amongst the Buddha, the Tathagata, accomplished and fully enlightened, directly knows earth as earth, having directly known earth as earth, he does not conceive himself in those things. And why is that? Because he has fully understood it to the end, I say. So now he's adding this, he's fully understood it to the end, whereas the normal arhants and so on have just fully understood it, but the Buddha has understood it to the end. So that's just another kind of emphasis that the Buddha wanted to signify, that actually the Buddhas, even though the Arhants are liberated, they don't have full knowledge of everything. And that's why they don't have knowledge completely to the end. They have knowledge to the extent that they got liberated, and they have knowledge of anicca, dukkha, and anatta. But the Buddha even had additional knowledge about, just is too much to fathom. But so many little details, and also the psychic powers and other sort of things. And then there's even a section called the Tathagata II. And so in this one, he adds the Paticca Samuppada. So this is interesting. Having going through all those, 6 or 7 repetitions of that in the Tathagata II, he does not conceive himself in earth or to be mine or delight in earth. Why is that? Because he has understood that delight is a root of suffering, and that with being as condition there is birth. And whatever has come to be, there is aging and death. So basically he kind of goes through the Paticca Samuppada in a kind of a truncated version, just to show that the Buddha had that extra kind of knowledge, and so on. Even others might have that knowledge, but again, I think he just, maybe he wanted to make the sutta a little bit longer, maybe a little bit more interesting. But anyway, that's what he's saying. So he goes through the Paticca Samuppada, not the whole thing, but many of the connections. Therefore, monks, through the complete destruction, fading away, cessation, giving up, relinquishing of craving, the Tathagata has awakened to supreme, full enlightenment, I say. And the ending of this sutta is interesting, because if you're familiar with the endings of other suttas, it said usually the monks delighted in the words of the Buddha. Now there's a couple of suttas in which they didn't. And one of them is this one. It says, but the monks did not delight in the Blessed One's words. And also in the Anatta Lakkana Sutta, the monks didn't delight because the Buddha was hammering on the ego and going beyond the sense of I and self, which some of those monks who might have been Brahmins before becoming Buddhists, and they still might be clinging a little bit to the sense of this idea of Atman and the Supreme Self. The Buddha was really trying to strip away any subtle remaining delusions that they had about any type of indwelling self or soul. So they didn't delight in the words, at least some of them, I guess. So anyway, that is the sutta. And really, the important, parts of the sutra are, the ones in which he said an ordinary person perceives things to be real objectified objects. And that's how you get attached to them. You don't see their impermanence, and you don't see the selfless nature of them, and you don't see the suffering inherent in the attachment to them. But as you practice meditation, especially Vipassana meditation, and you gain balance, concentration, and wisdom, then when you have that glimpse of the fading away of the sense of self, and you have that direct seeing of the emptiness of the ego and basically the emptiness of all formations, even temporary, that's having directly known it. But still your mind is caught in it. So that's why one has to go on practicing. And so the difference between the ordinary person, the untaught person, and then the Arhant. So the ordinary person perceives in objects, conceives himself in these objects. The learner directly knows these things, and he tries not to conceive and get all caught up and bound up in them. But of course, he's not perfect yet, so they make mistakes, and they still wind up, having some amount of suffering. Until they finally reach the Arhant level, in which, having directly known objects, the emptiness of all objects. So directly known means you're seeing the anicca, dukkha, and especially the anatta of all of the five aggregates, basically, and all of the sense objects. And that you've trained yourself enough up to that point that you're no longer conceiving in them or conceiving yourself as being in them, because you've overcome the sense of I. So now I wanted to, having gone over that much, so I'm perceiving myself in relation to the water element, right? So the water's tastes good on a hot day. So anyway, conceiving without attachment. Okay, now I wanted to, as I mentioned earlier, to go back and revisit the Udana verses that I went over last week, and kind of contrast that with this sutta that I read now, the root of all things. Because again, in this Bahia Sutta, the Buddha was teaching him the root of all things, directly. The teaching in brief. So the Buddha didn't have a lot of time. He knew this guy was probably going to get killed quickly, and the person was ready to understand. And so he taught them this. So he says, where neither water, nor earth, nor fire, nor air gain a foothold. So again, this verse mentions the four elements, just as this Mulapariyaya Sutta, the root of all things, is talking about. He perceives earth, water, fire, and air. He conceives in them. That's giving them a foothold. So, because the first aspect of any sense experience is you have this a sensation arising, and the mind then, clings to it or identifies it, especially if it's a painful or pleasant one. And by lingering on that sensation, it gains a foothold in the mind. And then because of that initial foothold of attention to that sensation, the person conceives in it. That itch is happening to me or my body. That's conceiving in earth or of earth or himself being in earth. And so on. So that's how it gains a foothold in the mind. So in the state of, for the Arhant, those objects don't gain footholds in the mind. So in the experience of Nibbana. And also another aspect of that is so I'm just going to reread the words of the instructions of the Buddha to Bahiya, for those who might have forgotten already or didn't read it. Bahiya, you should train yourself in this way. In the seen will be merely what is seen. That's the perceiving. And in the heard, the sense, the cognized, that means there's only what is heard, sensed, and cognized. And when you're able to do that, when in the seen there's only the seen, then Bahiya, you will not be with that. That means there won't be an I that is with that seen object. That means gaining a foothold in the mind. When Bahiya, you are not with that, then you will not be in that. And so this is echoing the instructions that the Buddha was giving in the Mulapariyaya Sutta, as one should not conceive in earth. You will not be in that. And when you are not in that, then you will neither be here nor beyond nor in between the two. And basically that means your relationship to the past and to the future or even to the present moment. There's no more self or sense of I or self. And just this is the end of suffering. So this just this is the end of suffering. It shows that really anatta, the experience of anatta, is really the essence of the Buddha's teaching. Of course, when you understand anicca in the very deepest levels, then you also understand anatta pretty much simultaneously. But a lot of people understand some forms of anicca, but without understanding anatta. So they haven't understood anicca to the end. Like they understand, they reach out their arm and they knock a glass off the table and it breaks, and they say, "Oh, anicca." Or they get sick, anicca. Somebody dies, anicca. Okay, this is just the sort of external anicca, very superficial. But it, really anicca refers to the arising and vanishing of our states of consciousness, of the aggregates from moment to moment. That is the deeper meaning of anicca from on the meditative level. So anyway, and so these again, so these two suttas are similar in where the Buddha is talking about the real kernel or the real essence of wisdom. But he knew that the Bahiya's mind was ready to grasp that, and so that's what happened after the Buddha giving him those instructions about only in the seen is only the seen, and so on. And that whenever there's only the seen, you will not be in that, nor with that, nor here or beyond or in between the two. It's when that vanishing, that total vanishing of the sense of I. And then when after the Bahia had been killed, then that's when they saw the body being carried away to being burned, where the monks asked, what happened to Bahia? You gave him a little meditation subject and, 10 minutes later, he's dead. I mean, what's going on? And then he said, don't worry, monks. He said, where neither water nor earth nor air or fire gain a foothold, there no stars or shine or sun sheds light. Where a wise person for himself through their own wisdom, they become freed from form and the formless, freed from pleasure and pain. So anyway, I just wanted to reread that because the Buddha keeps on mentioning this earth, fire, water, and air. In both of these suttas, they occupy the place of importance of the four element meditation. So having gone over that, I know there's a lot to that. And then actually there was another verse that actually I didn't cover last week. It's kind of a companion to this one. It's called the unborn. And the Buddha, again, there was a group of monks that was really meditating very, assiduously and very intently. And he knew that their minds were, getting these experiences. And that's when he gave this utterance of, there is this unborn, unmade, unconditioned state being Nibbana. Because he said, if there wasn't this unborn, unconditioned, unmade state, there wouldn't be an escape from it. There wouldn't be an escape from the born, from the made, from the conditioned. But because there is an escape from it, because the Buddha had realized that escape, that means transcended birth and death, reached the deathless state. Therefore, he's saying there is this unborn, unmade, unconditioned state because he, as well as so many other arahants, have, directly reached that level, that attainment. So it's all referring to whenever the mind stops, and it all comes back to that initial moment of contact in the sensory experience where the mind springs into action with, that's a painful feeling, that's a pleasant feeling, that's in this body belongs to me. We're seeing the people outside of himself, the objects outside of himself, or the objects inside of himself. He's thinking about his liver and stomach and spleen and heart or whatever, and worrying and obsessing about them. So he's conceiving these things in himself and outside of himself and everywhere, in between. And that's how the whole mass of suffering and anxiety, worry, and fear arises. Okay, so, these are things that you can actually contemplate in your meditation. And this, that's why actually the four elements meditation, as I mentioned before, was one of I spent a lot of time, doing that meditation on the four elements. And it's very powerful but it helps to understand it. Even intellectually, again, those three levels of understanding is Okay, you hear this intellectually, okay, that sounds all right. And then as you go on meditating and you contemplate that, and you see how quickly the mind is jumping to conclusions and trying to name and label all these different sensory reactions and the perceptions, and then how tightly the mind clings to them. You start to understand, how the mind is working on a deeper level. And then finally, when you have trained yourself enough, the mind does not conceive these objects, then that's when you can have the experience of the unborn state. And it's literally, again, it's literally right there beneath your nose if you know how to tune into it and tune out the 5 aggregates as belonging to I, me, and mine, and tune into that vibration of just the pure knowing. Okay, let's see then if there's any questions in the chat box maybe about this. Says, does this sutta primarily emphasize wrong view? Is that correct? Yes, it's emphasizing wrong view because it starts out saying the untaught ordinary person. Now, the untaught ordinary person is a person with wrong view, according to the Dhamma. They're wrong. They might have some of their views might be right concerning mundane knowledge and so on, but we're talking about the Dhamma. So the right view according to the Dhamma. So it's emphasizing how to get the right view. It's through developing these ways of meditating, developing the mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom, and understanding in the scene, there's only the scene, not I am seeing or not I am seeing this object. And but again, it takes a lot of training, development of mindfulness and concentration, to basically tune out the other things. Actually, that's what we're doing. When we're developing meditation, we're tuning out the clinging and grasping and all the sensory noise that's coming through our senses. We're tuning it out and tuning in to the subtler vibrations. But again, it takes a lot of training. Okay. This next question, please give us the sutta place and number of the Mulapariyaya. Yes, it's sutta number 1 in the Majjhima Nikaya. So Majjhima Nikaya, sutta number 1. Just Google, if you know how to spell Majjhima, you have to spell it right, Majjhima Nikaya. And Sutta 1, and it should come up. So it's Sutta number 1 in Majjhima Nikaya, the Mulapariyaya Sutta. And then it says, Visuddhimagga advises that meditating fervently on the 4 elements will bring further one on the path. Yes, that's also, Visuddhimagga also mentions that sutta, the 4 foundations of mindfulness. He mentioned that. That's why that's part of the mindfulness of the body, the 4 elements. But the Buddha taught the 4 elements in other ways too. He taught in the Rahula, the sutta to his son Rahula. I've gone over those before. I'm not going to repeat them now. But basically teaches them in a slightly different way, like make your mind like the earth, water, fire, air. That means making it solid and making it so it doesn't absorb or tolerate objects that come in with it. Like fire burns up any objects that get thrown into it. Wind blows them away. water element, flushes them down the toilet, and the earth element, bears up. The earth element doesn't get angry if you pee on it or defecate on it or whatever, dig holes in it. The earth doesn't, fight back. So that's the way we train our mind. So that's a different way of making your mind like these elements, which is also they're also very powerful. Okay. So, anybody have any last questions that they might want to ask by unmuting themselves? Well, maybe I think it's already 1:50, so I think we'll go ahead and stop there and take a short break and come back for a few yoga exercises and then sit down for our meditation. Okay? That sound good? And see you back in a few minutes. Okay, friends, stand straight. Feel your feet pressing the floor. Just relax the shoulders. Feel the arms and hands hanging at the side. Feel the head balanced on top. And then begin taking a few deep, slow breaths. Fill up drawing the air from the lower lung up through the middle to the upper chest. Feel that expansion in the upper chest. Hold the air in the lungs 2 or 3 seconds. Then slowly breathe out. Try to feel the last bit of air go out of the lungs. Just take a few more breaths, deep breaths like that, cultivating this mindfulness. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, standing here and now. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, standing here and now. Breathing in, feeling the whole body. Breathing out, feeling the whole body. Now we'll begin these exercises, coordinating them with the breathing, doing the movement while breathing in, holding the position for 2 or 3 seconds, with the breath held in the lungs and returning to the starting point on the out breath, repeating each one 3 times. So with the next in breath, raise the arms over the head, interlock the fingers, stretch the head back, straighten the arms up, look at the back of the hands, stretch up. On the out breath, turn the hands down, touch the top of the head. The next in breath, palms up, straighten the arms, stretch the head back, so bend backwards a little bit, feel the sensation. Out breath, touch the top of the head. Once more, third time, hold that upward stretch longer, try to bend back a little more. Feel the sensation. Now release the fingers and the out breath, arms back to the side. And relax. Just Feel the feet pressing the floor. Don't give the mind time to wander in thoughts. Just feel that earth element, that earth vibration. Just perceiving the earth vibration. Or directly know it as just a vibration. Not me or self or okay, next on an in breath, push up on the toes and raise the arms over the head and stretch upwards. Face the hands toward each other about 6 inches apart. Out breath, come back down. Arms to the side, feet, heels to the floor. Use the in breath to help lift up the body. In. Out. Again, that movement and air is just the air vibration. Once more, in. Out. Again, just remember standing, just feeling those increased material vibrations. Just perceiving those vibrations, but try not to conceive in them. Okay, next we'll do knee bending. Get on the in breath, lift up on the toes, lift the arms up front for balance. On the out breath, bend the knees lower down into the squatting position if you can, balancing on the balls of the feet. In the in breath, lift up. In out breath. In. Out. Out breath, relax. Just keep the mind feeling the vibrations. Just material vibrations. The interactions of cells, molecules, atoms, electrons, vibrational energy. Okay, next we'll do the side bendings. On the in-breath, raise both arms up over the head. Keep the fingers and the arms straight. On the out-breath, bend over the right side as far as you comfortably can. Keep the arms and hands parallel to each other like railroad tracks. In breath, lift up. And the out breath, the other side. In. In to the right, out breath. Once more to each side. The out breath. Relax. Feeling those increased vibrations. Just letting go of your thoughts. Okay, now spread the feet apart about 3 feet. We do the twisting from side to side, holding the arms out. And breathe in. On the out breath, twist to the right. Keep your eyes focused on the hand going back. In breath, front. Other side, out breath. In, out. In. Once more to each side. Relax. And just perceiving the material vibration. Now bring the feet together. So one last exercise, the backward and forward bending, holding the arms out, the hands facing forward. You be careful with the back bend, don't bend back too far the first time. On an in-breath, gradually raise the arms up and spread them out to the sides as you bend back. Look up at the ceiling. And straighten up, keeping the arms out at the sides. And on the out breath, lower the hands down towards the floor. If you can touch the floor, the feet. Let the little bones in the lower spine stretch out. Keep the legs straight if you can. And begin standing up again. Turn the palms outward. Lifting the arms up and out to the sides. Carefully lift up, keeping the arms out. Again, out breath. In. Out. And on an in-breath, as you stand up, bring the hands together at the chest. Back to the sides. Relax. Just close the eyes. Just feel all those pulsations, vibrations. Material life force vibration. And just sound vibrations, visible vibrations, odor, flavor vibrations, or just vibrations, without calling them this or that object. Okay, so now you come back to your seats for the meditation, sitting meditation. Okay, friends. So, sit in a comfortable posture. Keep the back straight, the head level with the floor, keeping the chin up level to the floor. Just gently close the eyes. Now bring your total attention down to feel where the buttocks press the seat. Just feel that earth element vibration of solid or hardness sensation that's perceiving the earth element. Although we try not to conceive it as being my body, although we know it is, but Just understand it as just a vibration, the earth vibration. And just mentally feel the way the legs are bent, the knees are bent, and the feet tucked underneath, where the feet touch the floor, where they're crossed and touch each other. And just the earth vibration. Just try to feel the subtle vibrations and your tingling sensations, pulsations in your feet, your toes. Just the vibrations. Just think in terms of vibration, not my body part. And now let the awareness feel your hands and fingers touching together, or they touch your legs, even though that's a conception, but it's just to be able to focus our attention there. And just feel the basic material vibration, subtle pulsation. And now feel the weight of the arms hanging from the shoulders. Just relax the shoulders. Just feel the sensations of the clothing rubbing against the skin of the shoulders or arms. And just perceiving the earth vibration. But try not to conceive it as on my body or in my body, just earth vibrations there in awareness. Now feel the head balanced on top. Feel the sensations on the face, sensations of the skin stretched over the skull, on your forehead, the nose, cheeks, lips, chin. Just vibration. And feel the lips touching together. Feel the tongue laying in the mouth. Feel any sensations in the back of the throat, the urge to cough or swallow, anything else. And now let the awareness kind of settle or rest just behind the eyes. Just sort of feel the eyes resting in the sockets and the eyelids stretched over the eyeballs. Just turn on the inner camera of awareness and just watch the eyes sitting there. You might notice some light or color, an image. From that point behind the eyes, just let the awareness kind of open up a bit to feel the rest of the body, feel the whole head, shoulders, arms, the hands, legs and feet, buttocks pressing the floor. So many different earth vibrations. And just be aware of sitting. Can now begin some deep, slow breathing to feel the air element vibration. Feel the expanding of the lower, middle, and upper chest. Hold the air in the lungs to help oxygenate the blood. Feel the relaxing contractions of the out breath. Feel the last bit of air go out of the lung. Just take a few more deep, slow breaths. Just cultivating this basic mindfulness. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, sitting here and now. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, sitting here and now. Breathing in, feeling the whole body. Breathing out, feeling the whole body. Now to try to build a bit more continuous concentration, we'll count the breaths from 1 to 10. With the next expanding in breath, mentally count to 1. The contracting out breath, also 1. Next in breath 2. Out breath 2. In breath 3. Out breath 3. In breath 4. Out breath 4. In breath 5. Out breath 5. In breath 6. Out breath 6. In breath 7. Out breath 7. In breath 8. Out breath 8. In breath 9. Out breath 9. In breath 10. Out breath 10. Now discontinue the counting. Discontinue any deep breathing or controlling the breath. Letting the breathing return to its uncontrolled, shorter, irregular rhythm. And continue to feel it. To observe the sensations moment by moment. Try to tune in and feel the 4 phases of the breath cycle. The expanding sensations of the in-breath and the brief pause. The contracting sensations of the out-breath and the brief pause. Try to feel like a scientist sitting in the laboratory observing an experiment. An experiment in sensation. Try to notice how each breath is different, sometimes longer, sometimes shorter. Sometimes the pauses in between the breaths are longer or shorter. It's always changing. Just cultivate this basic understanding that what you're noticing or just sensation, material vibration, even these sounds are just material vibration. If you conceive in them, if you form objects out of them, that's the conceiving in them. You might conceive in them, but don't delight in them. Just let them arise and vanish. Don't take them as I, me, or mine. Just keep the breathing sensations there in the eye of the awareness. But at the same time, you can notice and feel other material vibration, body sensation, or sound, or even your thoughts coming and going through that body-centered, breathing-centered awareness. Breathing in, sitting. Breathing out, sitting. All those sensory vibrations are just coming and going through the senses. Don't give them a footing in the mind by thinking about them, delighting in them. Just observe how they all just arise and vanish, come and go on their own. They arise, last a 1 or 2 moments, change, vanish. Something else comes and goes. Be alert for thoughts, trying to find a footing in the consciousness. by remembering the past or future, something. Get caught up or lost in thinking, recognize it as thinking. Let go of the thought. Come back to the breathing body. Take a deep breath. Reground the attention, the breathing body. Coming back to the flow of moment to moment awareness. The mind is dull or too many thoughts, come back and do some deep, slow breathing to help stay grounded, centered. Just moments of bodily feeling, sounds, thoughts. Coming and going, arising and vanishing. Just vibrations, hearing vibration, tactile sensation, mental vibration. And keeping up with the flow of impermanence, you don't allow them to find a footing in the consciousness. They find a footing in the consciousness because you cling to them. You conceive in them. If you know what the five aggregates are, the mind wants to think a little bit, just understand each of the aggregates, identify them. This is material vibration, this is feeling, this is perception, volition, ego consciousness. Don't conceive in them or of them or apart from them. Just empty vibrations coming and going. Just allow any last traces of the sense of I, me, or mine to fade out of the awareness. Just feeling the bare, empty vibration coming and going. Let the sense of I being here or there or beyond or in between the two fade out of the awareness. Where nothing finds a footing in the consciousness. Just that is the end of suffering. Does that sound vibration find a footing in the mind? Are you conceiving it? Nati janam apanya panya nati ajaito yam hi janam panya siri nibbana santiki. There's no meditation without wisdom, no wisdom without meditation. One who both meditates and is wise is close to peace and freedom. May the suffering be free from suffering. May the fear struck be free from fear. May the grieving be free from grief. In this way may all beings live with mindfulness and wisdom. And thus spoke the Buddha. So now place the hands at the edge of the knees. And take a deep, slow breath, stretching the head back, pulling the hands against the knees to arch the lower spine. And lift the head up on the out breath, press the chin to the top of the chest to stretch the neck vertebra. Lift the chin up level on an in breath. Relax on the out breath. Put a smile on your face. Okay, friends. So this is the end of our meditation this evening, and hope you're able to get some insights, or at least some moments of a calm, centered awareness.
Thank you, Bhante.
And so just as a kind of a heads up, next Wednesday I'm going to start going over the Sub-Asava Sutta, which is number 2 in the Majjhima Nikaya, because 2 very important suttas for practicing. Okay, I'll send out, try to send out the reminder of that, and a link or an attachment that has that Sub-Asava Sutta, again it's Majjhima Nikaya number 2.
Thank you, Thiruvan Saranai.